everyone. It is another Tea Talks. Yes, it is a different setting because I am so happy to be joined by Miss Lydia. Lydia, where are you from?
Canada, and I'm
Thank
based in
you.
Abu Dhabi.
Yes. So what's going to happen this time around is that if you caught our episode about leaving home and what to consider, we actually talked about Miss Lydia when we talked about the insurance and we talked about retirement plans. And so Lydia has been out here for how long?
About 4 years.
4 years. And so he's actually worked with a lot of the expats over here in actually getting their legal affairs together and in order. So we're going to spend this next time just talking with Lydia and kind of discussing into a little bit more detail for those who have questions, different things you have to consider about life insurance, about retirement, and trying to make those plans while you are abroad. So Lydia, thank you so much for joining us. And I can just kind of say, let's start the conversation with how have we met? How do we know each other? And what's that story behind right there?
All right. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this talk with you today. You know, about a year and a half ago, I started Love Yourself Financially. It's a community for women. All right. And you came into one of my sessions one day when I was in Dubai. So yes, I'm in Abu Dhabi, but at that time I started doing sessions in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And that was one of the first ones I did in Dubai at Kiza. So it was really lovely to meet you there. And you did share a lot about your experience, which I hope we'll get to tap into a little bit today.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and just pull back the wool and I'll expose myself a little bit for this one. But honestly, and I'll say that for everyone out here, Lydia hosts these financial seminars where we can talk about spending, debt, our personal habits, and really get to reflect. So that was a just friendship, I guess, that was kind of extended there. And then in my mind, I think I was going through it. And here is this beautiful woman that's offering all of this knowledge. And I came to you and was just kind of like, I know I'm supposed to be doing a good job at this. And I really did think that I had my stuff together. And I did. And we end up getting a session together, right?
Yep, that's right.
In that session, if you want to continue, or I can keep on going.
Well, you know what? One thing I want to point out, though, is, you know, you kind of hesitated when you said, oh, I thought I had my stuff together. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you're starting from. Okay. So it's just when we decide to meet, think of that as like a blank slate. So we're starting from there. And the idea is we want to be wealthy. We want to be financially independent. We want to be comfortable now and later in life. But for later in life, that may mean taking some sacrifices today. And so don't be hard on yourself. I see that a lot, especially with women. Women tend to be quite hard on themselves, thinking, oh, I haven't done enough, or I'm really bad. And it's like, no, you have made some mistakes in the past. Whatever, it's fine. We all have. You learn from those lessons. You're meeting with me now because you want to be wealthy. And so once you start that journey, it's like, it's only upwards from there.
And I will say that being in that close environment that you provided, it was walking in with the facade of I got it together, but listening to different things. And I was like, oh, you know, and then it was like also checking your spending habits. And if I'm being vulnerable and very transparent, I really do have some big long-term goals. And while my goals are big, purchasing land in a different country, building businesses and doing that, they're actually very attainable if I can check the beauty of right now down a little bit, which means that it was so nice to be able to be financially breathable that I was spending more money here instead of saving it and packing it away. And there was another piece of I was spending a lot of money back home because I really hadn't closed my businesses and assets. And so when we finally sat down, I had to get that little pen out and write the truth about I really make, how much was being saved. That was a big one. Was I paying myself first?
Right.
We really talked about that one because I wasn't. What does that concept really look like?
Well, first, I want to say that in regards to your goals and the big dreams that you have for yourself, this is something that I find with a lot of women, you know, and me too. I have a lot of dreams. I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish in life. So we're dealing with women who are high achievers, right? So
Yes.
I find that I seem to be working a lot with high achieving women who have these big dreams, but maybe are a little bit behind on the financial element of it. And of
Mhm.
course, if we want to achieve these goals that we have for ourselves, we need to bridge the finances because we need to live and these dreams cost money.
I
Okay,
will
so
say before we get into that too, I think one thing being transparent is dealing with high achieving women is that I know that if I want to go on this trip at this certain time, I can spend the money now and I can work harder to get there. And I didn't think that that was kind of like a crippling mindset because I always felt like, okay, I can just work or I can do more work and I can do more work and I will always get what I want versus no, you need to save it and put it aside because you don't want to be 55 years old running an 18-hour shift day, just trying to make things grind and hustle hard. So that's the,
exactly.
I guess, curtain about being an overachiever or being at this level is that you think you have this energy that can constantly do and feed your habits.
Exactly. So, you know, high achieving women, we're hard workers. And so we think that we can continually work harder, but we need to shift that mindset where we want our money to work hard for us. So
Mm-hmm.
that means working smarter, right? So
Mm-hmm.
knowing how best to manage our money and invest our money so that we can build the wealth that we need to live the life that we want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're not allowing our financial situation to dictate how we live. We're taking control of our finances so we can live the way that we want to live.
Yep.
And so part of that includes paying yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get paid, whether 10%, 20%, whatever, just consistently putting some money aside, some towards an emergency fund and some towards investing, that will ensure that you're prioritizing yourself. Because I remember in your case, you were spending a lot of money giving back to charities, giving back to various organizations. And as much as that's admirable, you know, you need to take care of yourself first. And then when you get to a place where you can do so comfortably, then you can do that. Or even now, maybe reduce how much you're giving, because it's always good to give, you know? People are in need all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not to a degree where it's harming your future goals.
And I'll say that to you, it was. And now I created a budget. I have a set amount aside for birthday gifts or, those little things that happen because it was that everything was spur of the moment or so-and-so's graduating and all of these other things. And then the other piece of it is if it wasn't a priority for you to tell me, then it's not going to be a priority for me to provide it. And
Right.
so kind of putting that mindset where we just read the article where it was like I felt like I had a save a person mentality, or Oprah even talked about like you have to be nice, and this will help somebody out, and it doesn't cause me any harm, so I'm going to constantly help. And it was really talking about that mindset. Now the other piece that I don't know if you remember too much is that when we had that conversation was me really realizing life insurance and how I thought I was getting one deal. And we looked at the paperwork together. And one of the things that I didn't recognize was that it stated in my life insurance that if I was a resident of another country, I would not be covered. And I was like, I was putting in like $200 a month
Right.
this insurance policy that in the fine lines wouldn't even cover me.
Exactly. And so I see that happen a lot, especially with Canadians and Americans. They tend to tell me, well, I have insurance back home. And I tell them, you need to check the fine print because as far as I'm aware, and I haven't seen any situation where this wasn't true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're not a resident in that country where you got the life insurance, you won't be covered if something happened to you abroad while you're a resident abroad. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're covered because life insurance to me is the foundation for financial planning. Because once you have life insurance, if something were to happen to you, let's say you're diagnosed with a critical illness, that lump sum will pay out and you can use that to pay your hospital bills, to pay your rent, to pay whatever lifestyle costs that you may have. So you're not worried about your bank account being wiped out or going into bankruptcy. I hear a lot of that in the US. Fortunately, even if I was back home in Canada, we do have public health insurance.
Yes.
So, but especially with Americans, that's a big issue. And then life insurance that pays out upon death, that's money that can go towards your beneficiaries, future generations. It can set them up, assuming that you've also taught them how to use money so they don't just, buy luxury items and spend unnecessarily. But a lot of people do use life insurance as a way to set up generational wealth in their families. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about enough. And it's something I really didn't even recognize until a couple of years ago when a friend pointed it out to me. Yes, I do understand that it's important to leave some money for your family, but when you think about it as a generational wealth issue, then it's even more significant.
So working with Lydia, I was able to really, really break down my life insurance policy. And I think that's another thing. We take for granted goodwill, and we kind of and say, okay, well, as long as I'm doing this and working in good faith, I have something that's working for me. And in my case, with the life insurance policy that I had in the US, it was just, there was more questions. It was just so many more questions once I started opening up that first layer and peer. And then I think that there was a paranoia then about, okay, well, I know I want to get rid of this life insurance. Can I get something that's going to equate and cover it? What about the currency? What about, the country? What about all of this? And Lydia, I don't know if you want to start here. It's just like the new life insurance policy that I found was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It literally was just like 2 pages. And it was very to the point where I think I got covered for the same amount. If my family's watching, it's $25. A very decent amount. But I paid literally $80 less for it. And then it is comprehensive. Very much. It's not asking about what happened. It's not asking any of the other things, like where did it happen, to make it like, it's very just cut and blank. If I stop breathing, this is what happens.
Exactly. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but if you're in a war-torn country, for example, which is very unlikely, but generally speaking, the policies here are global policies. So pretty much any country that you're in, if you die in that country or you get a critical illness in that country, you will get the money. Okay. And in addition to that, I know Canada and the US are quite similar where critical illness is concerned. So in Canada and the US, generally it's 4 critical illnesses that are covered. Okay. So the main ones like cancer, stroke, and so on. So there's 4 of them. But here, by default, you have about 30 to 35 critical illnesses that are covered. Again, you have to meet the specific terms to make sure that you would get paid out. But those 2 things alone are good enough reason for me to want to get it here, because even if I move back home, the coverage is still going to apply. I just have to let them know that I've moved. So fine, I am paying a little bit more, but I'm getting value for my money, in my opinion.
Well, that was a big one, because once again, for the policy I stated, my critical illnesses were really like, it wasn't even at the beginning of an illness. Like even if I was diagnosed, I wasn't covered then. It was like really like close to, I had to die. Like I couldn't see my money but for 1 week of my life before I left. And I was just like, focus. I love.
But I will say, just to add to that, it's really important to read the fine print. So whenever I send out the emails, I also send out the critical illness guide. And it's important to read that over, because you'll know all the details under what conditions will the money be paid out to you if you're diagnosed with a critical illness.
And so this is how I will just say our relationship started. It was basically meeting in a coffee shop and really kind of just looking at this insurance conversation. And I'll sit there and say it was no pressure. It was more of a learning situation. And I was very particular on, if I can't talk like this with the person who's my financial advisor, if I can't just sit there and treat them like a member of the family, then why are they advising me on one of the most important things that I own? I have to treat my currency with love and respect. The person who's holding it or advising me should have that same love and respect as well. And so we had this beautiful conversation about insurance. And then right when we left, I looked at her and I was like, so I probably need to look at my retirement plan too, huh?
Of course, but it was one step at a time, no pressure. Didn't want to overwhelm you with too much.
Well, I have to tell you, secret to everybody, I overwhelm myself, because I went home and then researched my retirement plan, and I was hot. I was livid. I was not happy at all. And I'm not going to go into all of the details, but basically, I was paying thinking that I am going to retire big and be okay. I was really like struggling to put $400 a month in. Even though it didn't ask for that much, I was asking, like putting in 400 US dollars. And then I remember that my mom called me and she was so excited. She's like, I opened up your insurance papers and you have, I got to get it right, like 5,000, dollars just in the first year. And I calculated, I was like, that was technically 400 times 12. Whatever, like, that ain't savings. Like, that wasn't the interest that was promised me. That wasn't, oh, you in the stocks and the bonds and all this. Like, literally, they're holding my money in an account. And so it's when I started having really, really detailed conversations with my insurance guy. And I just could not wrap my head around like the years that I had to put in before it ever started to show. I was trying to figure out what happened to the money I transferred over. And then I called Lydia, and what did you tell me about retirement plans overseas?
I don't remember. I don't remember what I said.
I think that the thing was, and we get there, so that's the next part of my journey, that once again, just like how there's life insurance, there's opportunities for me to do that over here
Yeah, of course.
without I guess just the little tricks of this said this or this said that. And I think more of a black and white system on, if I put this money here, it's available and it's growing. And it wasn't so much of, oh, well, such and such, you have to wait 6 months for this, or you have to wait this for this. And so our next step is to be moving forward to looking at the retirement options.
Yeah. I think it's really important, no matter what you're signing up to, you need to understand what you're signing up for before you actually sign the paperwork. So I do take an effort to really explain to clients, because I have some clients, they're like, yeah, no problem. I read through it. It's cool. I'm ready to sign. And I have other clients where I really have to explain and explain and explain and explain. But at the end of the day, I'm satisfied when I'm confident that they understand what they're signing up for. I don't want them to come and tell me a few years later, like, oh, Lydia, this isn't what you explained to me. No, we went through everything in detail, so at least my conscience is clear, knowing that I've done what I need to do. Of course, you're not going to remember every little detail later on, but then I also have quarterly meetings with my clients, so we're reviewing things regularly.
Mm-hmm. So that's the piece that really stand out. And so what that conversation has done, and I'm going to say multiple, because it's not a one-time conversation. We have communicated over and over. It's given me a better blueprint and understanding of what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to go. So when we talk about in the UAE and we talk about that long-term planning, one, I put Lydia on because I wanted to be known that there are serious conversations that need to be had, and you want to be in a position where things are taken care of. And I know that we kind of mentioned before that you host certain webinars, because I'm not webinars, seminars regarding legalities when it comes to UAE, when it comes to these type of matters.
Yes, actually. So, in case of death or for whatever reason you're incapacitated in a coma, and you're not able to handle your legal affairs, you definitely need to have a power of attorney in place. And if you have children, Sharia law applies, okay? Sharia law applies to your bank accounts, Sharia law applies to your children, and it applies to your businesses. It's the law of the land, okay? But I really wanna highlight the children, because if something were to happen to one or both parents, Sharia law applies. Okay, so if something happens to the father, the mother isn't automatically the guardian, which is something people don't realize, because obviously where we're from, that would be the case. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're incapacitated and you need to sell your car, you can't do so. So you need a power of attorney to do that. And so I work with a lawyer. Her name is Miriam. We have a session, maybe every other month or so. So we're holding the next session September 4th. So that's the first Friday at 4 o'clock. All right, so if you're interested, just send me an email and I can send you the Zoom link. But I really think this is important for us to cover, because that's where I will go through life insurance in a lot more detail. And then she will cover anything related to Sharia law, but mainly wills, guardianship, and then Sharia law. So you need to understand what happens to you if you pass away, if you're incapacitated. If something happens to one or both parents, what happens to your children? Do you want them to go to the state? Probably not.
Mm-hmm. So, wow. And so I think that's something really new for us, because that's not something we've ever had to consider before. And one thing I also heard that if your family has to come over and handle your manners, and if you have a will, and if you have even a power of attorney that was done in the US, it needs to be attested, just like your what is that? Like how we had to get our university documents attested, if you're coming over on a divorce, you have to get that divorce paper attested. You have to get it attested, or else that law does apply. And so those are different kinds of questions that you really need to be cautious of and understand, because you have to do all this work and then lose it because you're not understanding the land that you're in and how their law automatically applies.
Exactly. So I will say Miriam is the expert on this. I've just highlighted on a few key points, but I think it would be best to either, join the seminar with her, or send me an email and I can connect you to her directly, so that you can go through any questions or concerns, and she will highlight anything of importance to you.
And I think really also the importance of this conversation is we're just putting out those fillers so that can be in your head and heart to think about and consider, because you don't want to be out here not taking care of handling what's important to you. And
exactly.
Don't want to be in that situation. And also, if your family's having to come back dealing with a grave situation, you don't want them to have to just deal with the emotional impact of what's going on and the financial pieces that it takes. Because just think about the steps it took for you to get a bank account, or just the steps it takes for you to do these things. And if you have a loan or whatever else like that, you have to make sure you put things in place so that can be taken care of, so it can be done. And one of the things that I do like about the policies that been given to me through Lydia is that it's international now. I really don't have to worry about what covers me in this country versus this country versus this country. I'm now able to have that on the international piece, and I can look at it on the back end of, okay, now what is the government's laws here? What are those things? So I can make sure that that's always taken care of.
Exactly. And one thing I will highlight is your life insurance is not touched by Sharia law. Okay, so whoever you put down as your beneficiary, that's who will get the money. And you can change your beneficiary at any point in time. If you get married or you have kids later on, you can put them as your beneficiary. But if you have children that are under 18, their guardian would get the money if something were to happen to you.
This conversation's been so powerful already. Is there anything else that you just want to throw at us, or just drop little nuggets and dimes and say, pick it up for $5.99 or whatever? And so just to feed us that information.
Honestly, what I want to say is, please start now. There are so many people I've met who keep procrastinating on something like retirement planning. And in this country, we don't get it from our employer or from the government. So you're the one who has to take control, and you need to do it yourself. We cannot underestimate how much money we're going to need to live comfortably later on. And we don't want to be dependent on our children or anyone else. So you need to start now. We all need to start now, or we all should have started before, but we're not going back and regretting. So we're starting now.
This has just been so enlightening, so empowering. If you have any questions, please check down in the box. Lydia's going to have her contact information in there as well. And like I said, this is just a Tea Talks information to throw that information at you just so you can know, because that's what we're about. We're about educating and empowering and giving you all the tools you need in order to find your best self at all times with money in fact.
Exactly.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Lydia, for joining us. I truly, truly appreciate it. And to each and every,
thank you so much.
Till next time.